HarperCollins and Harper Audio present Great Escapes, Across the Minefields by Pamela D. Toler and W. N. Brown, performed by Shiromi Arserio. Chapter 1. The Siege. Bir Hakeim, Libya, June 8, 1942. Susan Travers heard the whine of the approaching planes. She put on her helmet and kneeled on the floor of her dugout, waiting for the next German air raid to start. "Imagine you're in a deep, underground bunker," she told herself. "Imagine your helmet is a huge metal umbrella that bombs bounce off of, like hailstones from a roof." She knew in reality that the helmet would not protect her if a bomb hit, but it was better than nothing. She had lived in a tent at other military camps, but that would have been too dangerous in this free French outpost in the Libyan desert. Her home here was a narrow trench dug into the sand. It was 10 feet long, 4 feet wide, and waist deep, big enough to hold a camp bed, a little folding chair with an attached table, and her suitcase. The walls were reinforced with sandbags to keep them from collapsing, and a thin piece of sand-colored canvas stretched over the top to protect her from the sun during the day. But it wouldn't protect her from a bomb any more than her helmet would. Right now, as she waited for another wave of the German dive bombers called Stukas to attack, she thought it looked more like a shallow grave than a refuge. Susan could hear the Stukas now, droning in the distance like a vast swarm of bees headed toward Bir Hakeim. They were the worst part of the German attacks, in her opinion. As the sound grew nearer, she felt her heart pound and her legs tremble. It seemed like the bomber's humming was inside her head. Abruptly, the sounds changed into high-pitched screams, followed by silence as the planes dived toward the earth and released their bombs. The silence was almost worse than any of the noises. 5 long seconds of quiet as bombs fell toward their targets on the ground. Susan counted the seconds in her head, the way she had when she was a little girl waiting for the lightning after a clap of thunder. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The shells hit the ground right on time, exploding with a blinding flash. The earth shuddered. Then debris and dust filled the air. "Please let it be over," she whispered. Susan knew the siege would have to end soon. General Koenig, the commander of the besieged French forces, had refused to surrender to German commander Erwin Rommel. This meant Rommel would have to come in after them. The French troops couldn't hold out much longer. Susan's garrison was running out of food, water, and ammunition. Soon they would have no choice but to give up. When the war with Nazi Germany began 3 years earlier, Susan had eagerly volunteered to help her beloved France, first as a nurse, and then as a driver. But she had never imagined that she would end up in Africa with the 1st Free French Brigade fighting to keep the Germans out of Africa. Susan and the Free French forces, under the command of General Marie-Pierre Koenig, had arrived at Bir Hakeim on February 14, 1942. After nearly 4 months in the desert, most of the soldiers wanted nothing more than to leave. But not this way. Not in defeat. Their job was to help stop the German army from advancing into Egypt. Bir Hakeim was the most remote Allied post, but now, suddenly, their encampment was the focus of Rommel's Africa Corps. Susan's garrison went from being the least important to one of the most crucial of the war. The shift happened in late May. Commander Rommel ordered his army to march in a different direction and headed straight for Bir Hakeim. For almost 2 weeks since, the Africa Corps had rained down artillery shells on the outpost. The Germans had helped as well. They had allied with the Italians, who had sent soldiers, tanks, and other equipment. Susan and her fellow soldiers were surrounded, first by a no-man's land of barbed wire and anti-tank minefields, and beyond that, the German and Italian forces. Air raids battered the French camp day and night. The fighting stopped only when a sandstorm rolled in.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?